start by asking a question. How many of you feel like you never seem to have enough time? Most of you, and that's what happened to me. And that is what inspired me to write and to research the 24-hour customer. But what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is not about personal time management. There's lots of information out there about that. What I'm going to talk to you about tonight is something much more important. And it has to do with how time shapes our behavior and how we make decisions based on time and the forces that drive that. And what I'd like to position to you tonight and offer to you tonight, based on my research, is that if we can understand the forces that drive time allocations and how we make decisions on that, we can identify breakthrough opportunities in terms of new products, new services, and new programs. And just to give you a quick idea of some of the things that I'm going to share with you, we have at one end, you can think of Twitter, how it broke blogging into small time segments. That's an example of what I call time value innovation. But I'm also going to share with you some other ideas as well, such as Procter & Gamble's Febreze and some other areas of products that you would not normally think of that applied this and were very successful in today's economy in the last decade. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to go beyond business tonight because this is TEDx. And I'm also going to give you some examples that demonstrate how you can apply these time value mindsets to solving some tough issues as it pertains to health and also nonprofits and how we can think about it that way. So just to give you some context, I have given you an infographic that's on your chair, but there's also a chart here that describes the amount of information that is being generated. And if you think about it, it's like a funnel that's coming into your head. And at the top of the funnel is all the information out there that is being generated today. And it's phenomenal how much is being generated. The amount of data from things like social media and from other sources is going to be greater in terms of what's being generated in the next 4 years than in the history of the planet. So this is a tremendous amount of proliferation of data. We also have product proliferation. You can go to any grocery store and you can see all the products on the shelf. And so we have this immense amount of data that's at the top of the funnel coming in to us, and it's growing at an exponential rate. But at the bottom of the funnel is an attention bottleneck. We have about 16 hours of attention a day, and that hasn't changed since the dawn of time. And so what we have is this expansion at the top and this growth at the top trying to vie and push through this attention bottleneck. And this has a lot of implications on what's happening in our society today. So just to give you an idea of that, we see and are experiencing over the last 10 years a great shift. Now, we have seen, for example, from Adam Smith, the work that he did in the 1700s on the invisible hand of the markets, how the markets were guided by the forces of supply and demand. And a lot of that was very production-centric and manufacturing-centric in terms of that thinking. What we're starting to see in the last decade, since the new millennium, is attention scarcity because of this growth of data. And what I'd like to offer to you tonight, that we could call that and think of that as the invisible hand of time, because that is shaping so many of our decisions today. Now, just to give you an idea of how people are reacting to this, to cope, people are starting to triage their attention. And what we're starting to see is people building attention filters around themselves. Now, think about it in terms of we buy DVR recorders to avoid advertising. We use social networks and only follow certain people that we filter our information through. We look at the top pages of Google, and we look at the top of the App Store at Apple. And these filters are what's triaging our attention. But it doesn't stop there, because a lot of the technology for filtering this is not keeping pace with this explosive growth of data. And so we ask our friends for referrals and if they liked a certain product. So we're using our friends as a proxy to filter information. But we're also looking at reviews on the internet for products from strangers. And this is a way that we're coping with that. They're imperfect, but it's a way that we can very quickly assess whether a product or service is right for us. And so this is causing an allocation of goods and services, just as the invisible hand of the market is. The invisible hand of time is shaping, through these filters, what we deem as most important and what we prefer. Because we only have 16 hours of attention a day, we are outsourcing and automating a lot of things. We're reducing our attention purposefully. So for example, we sign up for automated banking services because we don't want to think about it. We sign up for automatic subscriptions, so they'll automatically renew. We buy robotic vacuums, so we don't have to pay attention to cleaning the house. And so what has emerged is this entire inattention economy of companies that are serving this outsourcing capability to enable us to outsource our attention. Again, though, this is imperfect. The filters are not keeping pace with all the information that's coming at us. And so at the end of the day, time is the ultimate arbiter of attention. We simply run out of time. And you know, you give 10 minutes to something and that's it. You run out, the meeting stops, that's it. And that limits our attention and directs our attention as well in terms of how we triage it. Now, with all of this background, how do we start thinking about innovating? And I'm going to give you an example of Johnson & Johnson. Eric Compton is the founder of their SimCare business unit. Eric looked at studies on diabetic patients, and he realized that 50% of Americans that are diabetic are not in control of their situation. 50%. Now, mind you, these are people that have access to health care. They have access to drugs. These are Americans. But what he found is that wasn't enough. If you think about it, traditional marketers think in terms of wants and needs. Let's understand customer wants and needs, and let's figure out what they need, what we should build for them, right? And so he found that wants and needs were not sufficient, because we know already that diabetic patients want to control their disease. It's a very complex disease to manage, but it is controllable. We also know that they need to. There's dire consequences to diabetic patients and their families, their employers, and also to the healthcare system for not maintaining the regimen. But wants and needs are not sufficient in today's attention-scarce economy, because what happened is they get diverted. There's time alternatives. There's time pressures. And so what Eric and his team did is they started to look at the context in terms of what time pressures are preventing diabetics from staying on track. And they started to target those. They also looked at triggers and incentives to help them maintain that. Most diabetic patients only see their doctor about 4 to 7 times a year. So being able to help them when they're not at the doctor and they don't have the care and providing them the resources. And so what they provided and what they developed was a new service, which is a personalized health service that surrounds the diabetic patient and helps them and gives them an environment to support them in their care through diet, through exercise, and through the use of the drugs that they take. They provide wireless reporting on their metabolic levels, and it goes up to a healthcare provider. They have access to the healthcare providers. They provide diet advice, but it's at the time the patient needs it. So one of their first customers was a trucking company. And if you can imagine, these truckers are in the cab of a truck. They're hundreds of miles away. They can't always predict when they're going to get to the next rest stop or the next place to do their analysis. And so what they found is a lot of them were doing their analysis at night. No doctors available then, but they had this resource. They had these resources available to support them. And what they found in this environment through 3 clinical trials that they ran was that they increased employee engagement in this program by 10 times of what had been in the past in terms of what they offered. And they reduced emergency room visits and hospital visits by 8% over a year with these trials. So they're starting to see some significant progress in terms of trying to help the patient by using some of these mindsets to enable the patients. The next example I'm going to give you is in the nonprofit sector. There is a group called Innovation for Poverty Action. And what they did is they created a program in 4 countries, including Peru and Ghana, where they provided text reminders to poverty-level individuals to remind them when they got paid or when they had money to save the money. And what they realized is they increased savings rates by 10% by putting these reminders into place. Again, they may want to save money, they may need to save money, but by providing this program, they enabled them by triggering them and reminding them through text messaging to save, and it helped them. Now, there's other ways to think about and things that you can create using these kinds of mindsets. And you can see there's some examples here of time slicing, time shifting, time sharing. There's a lot of ways you can insert your offering into the customer's day and be able to offer new capabilities. But you may think that this is fairly simple and it, gee, we can just slice and dice these, but the changes are relatively profound in terms of what it does and the capabilities it provides. Good example is a company called Spark.org. And what they did is they time-sliced volunteering. So many people don't have time to go and volunteer. But what they did is through their platform, you can offer a few spare moments from your desk and help with various causes that they need expertise on. And what they're doing in the process is not only changing the nature of volunteering, but they're also reaching people that want to volunteer but can't because they generally don't have the capability to sign up to be the program chair for the PTA, for example. So they're reaching new capabilities and using these mindsets to develop this. Now, there's many other ways, and I don't have a lot of time today to go through all of them, but what I wanted to do was leave you with a final thought as we think of this attention scarcity that we're experiencing today. We are starting to see an emergence of customer-centric ecosystems. If you think about the iPhone, how it surrounds us as an environment, and how it uses certain algorithms to bring things to the top of the App Store. You think of Google's algorithm and how they get things to the top. You look at customer reviews, how many likes. One of the things that's happening today is it's a popularity contest. And so one question and a food for thought for all of you, do we really want to triage our attention on just what's most popular? Or are there other ways that, and other means that we want to triage our attention? And then also, who is triaging that attention? Who's making those algorithms and who's making those decisions? So just some food for thought in terms of how our attention is being filtered and triaged. So with that, we have talked about a few examples of how you can innovate breakthrough products, services, and programs, both in the private sector and in the public sector. And I'd just like to close by saying that time is not money. Today, time is more important than money. Thank you.